think it's gonna go up for sale for around 12 million.
Ended up doing close to 20,000 a month.
So we literally just started with each putting in $500.
Yeah, so we hit $500,000 with 3 guys.
Do you have 3 tips of advice for other entrepreneurs?
I would have to say just find what you love to do and really stick with it. Like, so that was placed in your heart for a reason, and I don't think it's any shot of it's a coincidence. So you have that like a little fire for something, like look into it, pursue it, and go after it. And don't be afraid to grind for it, because it's not that easy. I know it's probably a very cliche thing, but it's not. It takes a lot of hustle, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. There's so many people that I've met, so many relationships that I've formed by even just starting Eating Cafe, just by making a business plan. I formed so many friendships that I'm going to continue on forming and having for the rest of my life. And so it just makes a big impact on what you see.
I have a lot, but I'm a big fan of trying to keep things simple. And so I think the first point would be to understand how a business works before you dive in. And that doesn't have to be a long, extended understanding process. You don't need to go to school for that. You just simply have to understand what revenue is, what expenses are, what cost of goods are, assets, liabilities, and some of the general buckets. What is an HR function? What is accounting responsible for? Now, in a small entrepreneurial setting, those buckets, as I talked about earlier, are kind of all you. As quirky as it is, there's a book called The E-Myth. It's a really good illustration. You take a couple of weeks and read that book, you'll come away with a really good understanding of how a business should operate in terms of delegation, hierarchy. I think that's just foundational to going into a business where you're putting your time and your money or someone else's money on the line. You should have that measure of confidence. Now, aside from that, you're not going to know what you're doing for the most part, and that's okay. And that point, it's fake it till you make it. A second piece I would say is take care of yourself. Because if you're not operating from a good place health-wise, you're gonna burn yourself out, you're gonna get sick, and you're gonna end up not enjoying your time and energy spent. So definitely a lot to say about that. But number one, prioritize sleep, eat whole food, and manage your stress. And that is gonna bring you leaps and bounds beyond where a lot of people in our country are at right now. It doesn't need to be a rat race. It doesn't need to be just reaching for the next thing. You can take your time, you can focus on quality work, but the work that you do should be fulfilling you in some way. That's the main advice that I have. If I were to give a third tip, I would also say, it's sort of on the heels of 2, but take some time for fun. I think that the first year I counted it might have been 70 days, somewhere around that number is days straight that I worked for that first year, but I knew that I needed to take some time off. So I prioritized that. And then from that point on, I never had a stretch like that. Sometimes you do have to pay your dues a little bit, but I work with someone who operates another business, and I think that they went into the 200 or 300 days without taking a day off that first year, and that's just brutal, and it's not necessary. Your business will survive if you take a day off. You don't need to go at it that hard, because if you're not balanced, you're not going to show up at your best for your team, for your customers. It's not worth it.
One of the tips I would highly suggest is you're gonna fail, and to learn from that. Failure is growth, I guess, in other words.
I would say just do as much research as possible on whatever it is. Like for us, it was moving. So just trying to figure out everything there is to a moving business you can, whether it's just, I literally watched so many YouTube videos just on like starting a business. I'm in school, so I went to my professors. I went to one of my marketing professors, and he helped me get some ideas. If you know anyone who's a business owner or just, I don't know, anything to do with sales or anything like that, just reach out to them, have a conversation, just reach out to as many people as you can and just try to get as much advice as possible.
And lastly, I'd say go out of your comfort zone. For me, that's going door knocking. It's not my favorite, but you gotta do what you gotta do, and it's part of the business, so I embrace it and helps you grow as a person and as a business. So
The first main thing is just be humble and actually try to help that client out. Don't be in it for the money. If you really enjoy what you like, then just do it to truly help them. 2 is always be kind to them, great customer service. Even if you mess up or if there's something happening, just always be professional and nice to them. 3 would be actually personality is a big one. Being very, very good with people really helps you out. And then actually I have one more. My other top one is being on time and just communicating with the client. That's very, very important.
One would be learning everything yourself. So, when we started, marketing was a big one for us. We didn't know how to do it. We ran through 4 or 5 different companies. It took thousands of dollars for us, saying they're going to do this, building a website. Just, it never worked out. So, spending time learning all the things that are important to your business, whether say you only like detailing cars, still learning how to do the website is probably the biggest thing for us. And then 2 is just investing in your people. You're only as good as the people that you have out here. Really lucky with 4 guys that are really good right now. So investing in your people, it might not be worth it in the beginning, but if you stay with them and train them and do it the right way, it'll work out. It's customer service, I don't know. I got lucky. I started selling cars. So I used to be a little 18-year-old who was didn't like talking to people, and that forced me to do it, and it just became something I like to do. But if you can create a bond with your customers, we're more than a detail shop. Customers call me personally with problems. That's what you want.
Do what you're good at, find something that you enjoy, and then the dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. It's a lot of work to do anything you want to do in life, and so just always make sure that you're putting the hours in and the time in, because that is what separates you. For sure.
And I've actually had people come up to me and told me, hey man, I got a food truck because of you, and I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like, yeah. And it takes a lot, I really don't see myself coming up to somebody before, not now. Now I understand a lot of points, but before, hey man, I look up to you, man. Being a grown man and telling another person, hey man, sometimes you do it anyway. You're like, man, I look up to that guy, you keep that to yourself, But yeah, I've had people come up to me and say, hey man, I started selling, got my food truck, and I love the way you hustle, man, and you're always here and there, and you're with your family doing things, and me and my wife, I got a kid and stuff, and and they've asked me any kind of advice. I'm like, yeah man, I said, when we started, man, we were gonna do a food truck in the beginning, but because people used to tell us the worst about owning a restaurant. Yeah, don't even get into that, man. Yeah, it's a whole nother thing. You're talking about taxes, you're talking about, they just told me the worst. So then we always kind of stayed behind and didn't want to really go to the other side. So we're like, till one day, man, the right people reached out to us, said, hey, you need any advice, you need any kind of paperwork, anything like that, come talk to me. I'll help you guys get to that other level you guys need to be. And they've tried our food. Other restaurant owners, they've tried our food, and they're like, and this was before we had the restaurant. They would be like, hey, you guys need a restaurant. Just keep pushing, man. Don't settle. I'm still not settling. I love where we're at. I love this, but I believe we deserve a lot more, and we're gonna get it. So, there's gonna be, no sleep pretty much, and that's the only way, man. That's the only way you accomplish anything you want to do, man. It's just there's gonna be a lot of sacrificing we did. I would work my 3rd shift job and 7 days a week, and in the morning when I get out, I go back. Before COVID, I would go and anything that was open, Gordon Foods, Walmart, Myers, and I would get cucumbers, I would buy limes, I would do the meat, anything like that to make it happen. I help my wife prep everything while I got a couple hours of sleep, and then we take that food out, go deliver it, and then I get ready to go to my regular job, 3rd shift. So we did it, man. We did it for 2 years, almost 3 years before we actually got our restaurant. And just reach out to the right people, man. There's always other people out there, and don't believe when they say, yeah man, it's too stressful, don't do it, don't even, you're gonna lose family. And at the end, man, there's just certain people that are not willing to help you and go up there with you, so you just got to do it yourself, man.
I would just say to pick something that you love doing, because that's the biggest thing, is doing something that you love every day, and just keep doing it and having fun with it regardless of what your thoughts are on, just keep going and say yes to everything, because that's experience, and it makes, you meet people through doing new things and stuff like that.
I would say my first one is, and I was talking with somebody else about this. So you got 2 options. One, you're either gonna do it all by yourself, or you're gonna have a business partner. So me and Emilio and I, we get along really well, which is nice. Although we do have arguments sometimes, I will say. But the beauty is we understand each other, and so You know, you might not do exactly what you want to do every time, but you have somebody who has your back, so you don't have to do everything by yourself. Now, if you're a control freak out there and you want to start a business all by yourself, you will have like the mental clarity of not having to talk to anybody or, you know, take advice from anybody. You can just do what you want. But then you're also going to have to do everything yourself: the operations, the marketing, the you know, the bank account, you know, all the boring stuff behind the scenes. The advice I would have is figure out what's important to you. You want to do your own ideas, or do you want to have it be a little easier on yourself, but you give up a little control?
One of the biggest tips I would give someone is when you're in the brink of giving up, that's when you should work a little harder, because there's like a few times in the past where I just remembered where I remember one time we did this job where we got fined by the state, and the state was like, yeah, you guys you know, did this demo job and there was hazardous material there, so we're gonna have to give you a fine. And at the time, I mean, it was a big fine for me because it was just me, and you know, I wasn't making that much money or whatever, and I was just like talking to my dad about this, and I was like, man, like, should I just give up? Should I just close shop? And he was like, nah, man, don't do that. Just give it another month. Like, just keep going. And a couple weeks later, I landed this like huge job that helped cover the fine. And I was like, man, if I would have given up 2 weeks ago, that would have been it. And if I would have given up then, you know, we wouldn't be here talking today about all this. So I guess my tip number 2 would be just when you're about to give up, just push a little harder and just give it another couple months and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think another one, you have to plan, but you have to have fun. And those sound like they're not related, but they are, because if you plan, then you can have fun. Because a lot of people, you know, when I used to work at 2 Men in a Truck, you know, you'd meet various types of business owners. Some are more on one side than the other. If you don't plan or have a goal, or you know, if you're kind of just unsure of what the path is, then you're going to be too worried about it all the time to even have any fun. So for us, we like to sometimes, you know, we'll get here and, you know, maybe we should have already left at like 8 o'clock, but maybe it's 8:15 and we're still telling jokes, because you need to, you know, you want to come, you know, to your own business, and you want to, you know, not be like, man, what's going to happen today? So we do a lot of planning. We have a whiteboard over there with what we expect each month to be in sales. You know, we plan out expenses for that, you know, the old profit and loss statement and balance sheets and stuff like that. So we do a lot of planning to a degree, and then that allows us to, all right, it's 4:45, maybe we don't need to spend 15 minutes being as professional as we possibly can be. You know, let's tell a couple jokes, you know, because I have seen professionalism be the detriment of any sort of culture you're looking to have. That's just me. Amelia and I have talked a million times about, once we have a big corporate office or whatever you want to call it, you know, making it not less structured, but kind of less structured, you know, like where you're able to be yourself and you're not trying to be smarter than everybody else in the building and stuff like that. So if you plan, you can have fun, and that will set your culture. That's the fast way to say it.
That's a good one, yeah. Have fun with what you're doing, because if you don't love what you're doing, then you're just gonna give up.
I think the most important thing is like just find a way, right? So could I have opened a restaurant right away? Absolutely not. That was not an avenue available to me. Like, some folks can find investors or, you know, have family or friends who can help, and that's really awesome. But if you can't and you feel like, well, I just don't know how to get to that big step, like find the small step first, right? So for me, the small step was I can save $150 and sell a couple dozen tacos at the farmer's market. Was I going to get from that to a brick and mortar in 4 months? No. But, you know, with a lot of hard work, like I was able to make that happen in a year, right? And I'm very fortunate that time frame existed for me too, because it really is, it's like a snowball effect. Every small thing that you do, every baby step that you take really, really, really adds on. A second piece of advice would just be to like fortify yourself mentally and emotionally. However busy you think you're going to be, however hard you think it's going to be like 2 or 3 times that, you know? And the most challenging thing too is like, it's not like the hours that you're working. It's not, it's not the planning. It's not all that. The most challenging thing is that once you own your own business, and especially in a restaurant, like there's always something you're dealing with. There's always a fire to put out. There's always something unexpected, some cost you weren't planning for, something that should work that doesn't, So try to, from the get-go, like build your business with like emergency funds in mind. Try to figure out a way to be prepared for those unexpected things so that they don't threaten the stability of your business. And then a third piece of advice would be like ask for help. I could not have done any of this on my own. I didn't do any of this on my own. Opening the space, like I had a few friends in here helping like for beer and pizza, basically. Like these walls are painted because there's a Pizza Hut across the street, essentially. Ask for help, ask for input. Every perspective matters, even if you decide to do things the way you're thinking at first. Like you never know who's going to spark an idea that could radically change and improve and grow the idea that you already have. There are so many fundamental pieces of my business that would not be the same if I hadn't listened to my mom or a friend or a neighbor who walked by or a person at the farmer's market or one of my staff members. So like ask questions, ask for help, be open to advice.
I mean, I say go for it. Always follow your dream.
Yeah, it's the best thing that we have done is
100%.
The blood, sweat, and tears putting into this place has paid off time and time and time again, and it's been so worth it.
It can be scary, but I would say, first come up with a budget and see if that is doable, and then make a plan of how you're going to execute, how you're going to bring your clients over and how you're going to pay your bills. And then also, I think third is just dividing up responsibility and just trying to stay on track with that and prioritizing, certain things over others.
I mean, for anyone that's looking to start a business in general, I think they should know their market for sure, know where they stand in the market. We've kind of branded ourselves, so a lot of people know what we have to offer, and I feel like that's been really helpful. Knowing what you're going to sell is huge. So like you don't want to pick a product or something you're not passionate about. So if you're interested in plants, obviously the greenhouse thing is great. We have a lot of people that love plants that don't want to grow the plants, but they just want to be able to source the plants. So that's a whole nother option. And then I would say knowing how much labor is involved is pretty big too. I didn't realize it growing up how much work it actually was until I got into it myself. It's very tedious growing plants. You have to be on top of everything, and there can be a lot of disasters involved. So I think really knowing what you're getting into is important.